government is taking on NIMBYs as it announces plans to stop new building projects being ground to a halt by local councils. But people in one neighbourhood, if you've been watching the programme, you'll have seen this, in Greater Manchester, are up in arms after a new development of 60-foot-high warehouses was built, quite literally, in their backyard, blocking out sunlight, blocking out the cooling breeze in summer. We're joined now by the resident there, Steve Retford. Steve, this is not what you guys thought you'd signed up to. You thought you'd signed up to a development that was much lower, and then this happens.
Absolutely right. The early plans were single-storey, low-level buildings, leafy walkways. This is the way it was pitched. And they let the planning permission lapse, and then they came back with this monstrosity that's behind me here, which is just huge. The images on the camera don't do it justice. You've got to see it to believe it.
When did you guys begin to realise that they weren't stopping, that this thing was going to grow and grow?
There's been a real haste to get this thing constructed. It became apparent, the size of it, when some letters were received and people started to do some research to look at the sheer size of it and the proximity of it to the school and the housing. And we thought, this has got to be a mistake. But you look at the size of the place, it's just colossal. It's incredulous that a planning authority would allow that in such close proximity to the houses. We're not NIMBYs. Nobody's a NIMBY on the action group. We knew it was going to be developed, but that is off the scale. It really is.
Look, I think anyone would forgive you for being a NIMBY. I know you don't like the title, but I wouldn't want that in my backyard. Meanwhile, Wigan Council's Director for Place, Aidan Thatcher, says the planning application for 4 warehouses went through the local authorities' planning, consultation and committee process. Right, so the implication is you were all consulted and they did the right thing. What's your response?
Absolutely not. There was a letter went out saying that the plans were going to be changed from what they originally were. The consultation is a real burning issue that hasn't been done. A lot of people were not consulted, and that is one of the real abrasive points at the moment where people are saying the correct procedures were not followed. Well, Wigan Council can say whatever they want, but I'm telling you, from the residents, those things were not done properly.
And you're all singing from the same hymn sheet. You're all saying the same thing. You're crowdfunding this now. Presumably, what you want to see is those things knocked down.
Yeah. OK, well, let's put that to Steve Reid, who is the Housing Secretary. Steve Retford, thank you very much indeed. Good morning to you. We know, Minister, that you want to build, baby, build. It's literally your phrase, build, baby, build. Nobody wants that built in their backyard, though, do they? You have these local residents in Wigan who say they weren't properly consulted. And when the rest of us hear you're going to build, baby, build, that's what people will be worried about.
No. It's not build anything wherever you want to build it. Of course, residents need to have a say, and in the legislation we've got going through Parliament, residents will always have a say and should have a say. I mean, I caught the end of your interview there with the local resident. I completely understand his anger. I would feel the same way if something got built at the bottom of my garden and I hadn't been consulted on it. But the council should have consulted. Now, I don't know the details of this particular one. I don't know what Wigan Council did or didn't do. It's entirely right that the residents should be able to call them out if they didn't do what they ought to do. But build, baby, build doesn't mean build whatever you like, wherever you like. There has to be consent from local people. It's their area. It's their front doorsteps. Of course, local people should have a say over what gets built there.
OK, so if they feel, as we heard from that resident, that they did not consent, would you support an application for a judicial review?
Well, residents are clearly sort of crowdfunding for a judicial review, and if the council didn't follow the rules, then the residents will win, and then action will need to be taken. So it doesn't need me. Residents and the council can fight this one out in the courts, and if the residents are right, then consequences will follow.
But I suppose this is the crunch point, isn't it? If existing planning laws aren't strong enough to stop something like that happening, loosening the existing laws is only
logically going to increase the number of mistakes.
No, well, no one's talking about loosening the laws. We're talking about the need to get more homes built because we have a housing crisis in this country. But if you get a council, I'm not talking about this particular one because I don't know the detail of it, but if you get a council that doesn't follow the rules, then they could be judicially reviewed and it can be overturned. And ultimately, in some circumstances, then the building would have to be torn down again. And that's quite right. The law is there to protect people. People should always have a say, as I said.
All right, well, explain to us exactly what it is that you're putting forward, then.
So what we're facing in this country, and many of your viewers will know this, we've got a housing crisis. You've got young people that can't afford to get their foot on the housing ladder for the first time. The majority of young people now in their 20s and early 30s live at home with mum and dad. When I was younger, we went out and got our own home because we could afford to do it at the time. The reason that housing is so expensive is we've not been building enough for years and years and years. So we've got legislation going through Parliament now which is going to speed up the planning process, but I want to go even further than that. So we're bringing forward some more changes. 50% of all housing applications that councils reject get overturned in the courts on appeal. That means delays of several years for homes that could always have gone ahead in the first place. We're changing the law so that I can stop councils from taking unwarranted decisions about house building that will eventually be allowed to go ahead so that we can make it happen much faster. That means we're giving the dream of home ownership to people for whom that dream has become an absolute nightmare because they can't afford the homes.
It's a tension, though, isn't it? Because, of course, everybody knows there aren't enough places for our young people in particular to live. But we are inundated now with people who are fighting these sorts of developments. Gray gets in touch via email. A small village in Suffolk, housing developers want to build close to 400 homes. On average will be 2-car households. 800 cars going through narrow High Street. The developers don't want to change plans on the roads. Traffic congestion. No one's giving a thought regarding road infrastructure. And what about GP surgeries? What about schooling locally? Yeah. We're just inundated with people, getting in touch saying, yes, everybody wants them. They don't want them where there's not enough infrastructure for these new developments to be built.
I completely sympathise with the concerns that are being expressed there. That's why we're asking every local authority to develop a local plan and get democratic consent from local people for it. And what that will say is the kind of homes that can be built, the size of homes that can be built, what they'll look like, where they can be and where they cannot be, and importantly, the kind of infrastructure that needs to be built with them. Because you don't just build homes, you build communities. People need GP surgeries, people need schools, people need roads and they need public transport. And we expect developers to be charged a levy to fund those additional community facilities. So if that isn't there, then the house building shouldn't go ahead. OK, Mr Reid, a lot of people are very concerned about wind farms. How will your proposals, will your proposals make it easier to get permission to build wind farms? It's not about making it easier, it's about speeding it up where they would get consent in any case. So there are a number of quite complex processes that have to go through for the impact that wind farms might have on radars, and it can take years for that to be resolved. You could do it much more quickly, so we're changing the rules just so that the decision can be taken faster. It doesn't change the decision, it means it happens faster. I mean, I'll give you a little example. This isn't a wind farm, but it's a housing development, but there's a Rochford Council, which is in Essex, in 2020 blocked the development of 660 homes. 2 years later, that got overturned in the courts on appeal and the homes then got built. Had Rochford not blocked them, that would have been homes built quicker for people in that area that needed somewhere to live, somewhere to rent, somewhere to buy. We need to get the planning system working faster while still taking into account the very legitimate concerns that people have about, roads, GP surgeries and all the rest of it.
Yeah.